everybody. So welcome to this week's episode of the Oh Hell Yeah video podcast. I want to introduce Bree. Bree, tell everybody about yourself.
I'm Bree Myers. I am in Central PA. I am one of the co-owners of Allegedly Records. I mainly handle like the bands on the East Coast. So you'll find me, bopping all over the East Coast scene. I'm in Pittsburgh and DC and Baltimore and pretty much all over the place every weekend and supporting the scene, supporting our bands. I also am a part of Punkbox, and we send out like a monthly subscription service with like CDs and vinyl and band merch and things like that. And I also do reviews for Punk Around and Find Out.
Very cool. So this is the first episode that I've ever done with two guests. So I want to welcome Gerry to the podcast. Gerry, I know this is your second time on the Oh Hell Yeah podcast, but introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hey everybody, I'm Gerry LaFemina. I am the front man, singer, songwriter, rhythm guitarist for the Downstrokes. I am the president of Savage Mountain Punk Arts, doing all the Savage Mountain Punk Festival stuff. And I live in Western Maryland, which, if you can imagine a line between Washington, D.C. and Pittsburgh, the center of that line is where we're at, and doing a lot of cool stuff for punk rock in Appalachia.
You're the non-existent third nipple in Maryland.
Right, that makes us a James Bond villain. Man with a golden gun.
Yeah. Yep. that was for the target audience.
What's his name? Scaramouche? Is that his name? That's the one with the guy who played Tattoo is in that.
Yeah, it's fuck. Not Octopussy.
It's Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah, Man with the Golden Gun. Yeah. I don't know the character's name. That's a good one too.
I have no help on the topic.
Are you not into James Bond movies at all?
I don't watch a lot of TV, and like not in like a snotty kind of way, but in like an ADHD won't let me sit down and concentrate on something for extended periods of time kind of way. So I haven't seen a lot of movies. Really? I'm more of like a 45-minute like TV show kind of girl.
Yeah. So at shows, do you have a hard time? Are you the kind of person that at the 30-minute mark, you're thinking, hey, let's have the next band, get off the stage?
I mean, there's a slight chance that I'm already outside smoking a cigarette and talking to somebody. And if you catch me outside at a venue, like there's a huge chance I'm not making it back inside because I just get caught up in the moment and I just jabber, and the next thing I know, it's like halfway through the next set and I have to like run in there.
Yeah,
I understand actually, Bree, the original name for Allegedly Records was Look Squirrel Records.
Yeah, basically. Amy and I both have raging ADHD, but it's been kind of nice so far because when hers is managed, like I'm kind of like off the rails and like vice versa. So we kind of like rein each other back in,
I love it. So tell me, Gerry, how the partnership between Coffin Curse Records and Allegedly Records came about, because spilling a little bit of the soup here, I didn't even know the partnership was happening until posts were made on social media.
Surprise, bitch.
I swear I asked you about this, but I mean, the sort of movement from like getting engaged through Savage Mountain Punk Fest was kind of like warp speed. And so, Mike, I think the first thing is, I'm incredibly committed to Coffin Curse. I mean, I think what you do is great, and I love being a part of it. And I love getting a skateboard. When the skateboard comes, you're like, 3/4 of these bands are no longer together on the label,
or broken up,
right? Yeah. But I also, I also know you're part of the Scene to Shining Scene thing with Bree, and what Bree is doing is really powerful, and she is local. I love what Allegedly is doing and Punk Box doing. So we've given a lot of stuff to Punk Box, and we've been working
for sure,
because we're in each other's neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so I think it was at the picnic where I just sort of was like, we had co-labeled the last record with a label that ended up never happening, right? It was going to be like their first release, and then they sort of, and I was like, well, we co-labeled the last record, and maybe it makes sense to co-label the other, because the there's a kind of, for a lot of small labels, there's a kind of geographic reach is what I see. And so I was sort of like, Bree's doing all this great stuff, and we're already working together, and I'm working with you. And so I asked Bree, and it took like 3 or 4 weeks for Bree to talk to different people at Allegedly. And some of them were like, what are you, crazy? You want to work with that nut job? And they met you, Mike, not me, by the way. And then
that can be understood.
I am convinced in the whole skateboard thing. I could have sworn, Mike, I asked you, and the fact that I didn't is just a kind of kind of, my head was kind of just I would like to say it was screwed on straight, but I've spent much of the last 6 months like, if my head is like in my hand, it's like close enough.
I get that feeling.
Being there. But I also think, and I mean this with no disrespect to either of you, both labels and both of you have particular strengths.
Oh, absolutely.
And from a band perspective, I like both of you as people. I like both of you as what you do. I love what you're doing, Mike, in Knoxville. I love the Punk and Drag. I love Cough and Curse. I love the band. I love your band. And I also love what Bree's doing. And it just sort of became like, well, I don't want to like have to pick and choose. So I was going to be polyamorous with my record labels. And as long as it's informed consent, everybody's happy.
Right.
Happy that this is the deal we're working out. So for people that are watching this right now, they probably have no clue what we're talking about. So Bree, why don't you give a little bit of background on what we're talking about, what this partnership is that I'm talking about?
Sure. So Gerry, I think it was at a Savage Mountain Punk picnic.
Yeah.
We briefly talked about it. And I, in this scenario, feel like the weird little cousin that your mom's like forced you to invite along, like I look up to you guys and admire you guys so much. So even to be asked to be a part of this was like just a huge honor for me. And I love both of you. And I think working together totally makes sense. And we all are in our own little, chunks of the country. So Gerry asked if I'd be interested in putting out an album with Mike, and of course I was down. And then the reason it got put off on my back burner for a couple weeks is that day I was at the punk picnic, and then I went to Baltimore for the Sklutz show, and then I was supposed to be in DC for Curse Words opening or release party. And between Baltimore and DC, I was in a car accident with a cop. And that kind of like just threw everything in my orbit off like a couple weeks. And then I got back to town and like got, back on earth, and like forgot about the whole conversation that Gerry and I had. And then I reached out to my partners, and that was an easy no-brainer on our ends too.
Tell us about what you have going on with your health recently. I've talked about my health ad nauseum on here and on social media, so I don't want to put you on the spot. You say what you're comfortable with, but feel free to talk about your journey with your health over the last couple months.
Sure. So around the middle of June, I found a lump on my breast, and immediately went to the doctor and had like all the tests done. And I would say within 2 weeks, I had the cancer diagnosis. What sucks about like the initial diagnosis is like they don't tell you anything, so you just kind of walk out just knowing that you have cancer. You don't know how bad it is, you don't know where it is, you just know that you have cancer. So you do the whole further testing and all that jazz. So I had a carcinoma in my left breast, and it was pretty big size, but I caught it right before it spread to my lymph nodes. So I had options of just having the lump removed and having radiation, or just having a double mastectomy, and I just went the double mastectomy route, and that was about a month ago. And they do reconstruction at the same time, so I'm now cancer free, like 3 months later, which it's been a whirlwind, but already. And I just got the news last week that I don't need chemo, so I am completely done.
That's incredible.
That's
Yeah,
great
it's
news. That's
fuck
great.
out of like the worst scenario, I had like the best outcome for sure.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, that's it. Just what can you say? That's like you
Yeah,
said,
that's
best possible outcome.
yeah, a
Um,
shit situation, but I came out smelling like roses.
yeah. Is there any of that? Hey, you're cancer free right now, but you might need to be checked for the next 5 years, type of thing.
So I have to go on hormone blockers for the next 10 years, because my tumor was hormone feeding. So they and I don't I have a whole list of questions for my doctor about that route, because
Yeah,
that's kind of scary stuff too. Um, but and I don't need mammograms because I don't have breast tissue anymore, you
yeah,
know. So basically I think I get a PET scan every so often just to make sure it's nowhere else. And I had all the genetic testing done, and I had a couple variants on my genes, so it's good. There's probably like 12 little girls in the generation below me, so it's good information for all of them to have.
yeah.
So I say if anyone was going to get cancer in my family, at least it was me and not one of the little girls running around.
It's rough, but it seems like you are taking it on the chin pretty well.
I'm a cockroach, dude. You know, you know. If you didn't laugh
It's,
about it, you'd cry. So might as well have a sense of humor.
Yeah,
90% of health stuff is attitude.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
yeah. Jerry, I know that you've dealt with your fair share of cancer in your orbit as well. So I know this is probably nothing new to you, but Bree, we're super. I know I can speak for Jerry and he can speak for himself, but we're super excited that you're doing better. And
I
it
appreciate
seems
that.
it seems like you'll be back to normal life here pretty soon. It seems like.
Oh yeah, I went to my first show last weekend, homie. It
Oh,
wasn't.
really?
I didn't get all up in there and dance and stuff too much, and I was a little sore afterward. But it was nice to be back out and about.
Did
You know,
was there an amount of time that the doctors wanted you to stay at home?
They said 4 to 6 weeks was like standard recovery. I was an asshole like my normal self and didn't listen to the instructions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I begged the doctor. I had drains that like pulled all the extra fluid and stuff out of me for 2 weeks. And I probably should have had them another week, but I kind of like begged the surgeon to take them out because I was just over them.
Yeah.
I promised that I would sit on my hands for 3 days afterward and not do anything. And I was like at home, like doing laundry and washing dishes. And so I had Sonora seroma. Seroma is what it's called, where it's where
Yeah.
like the empty cavities fill up with fluid. So I've been dealing with that. Nothing like hazardous or, threatening or anything. It'll eventually absorb back into my body. But had I not, you know, been a crazy person 2 weeks ago, I probably would have been completely back to normal by now.
Yeah, I know that life. It's hard to sit for weeks on end
Oh God, it's
and,
brutal.
and there's that guideline where you need to follow ABC or you're going to end back up at A, and it's hard. I've been
Well,
there,
I'm a
and
single
that
mom of
stuff's
four
super hard.
kids, so sitting around, even my kids have been great, like they've been so helpful, but still I got 4 kids that need to be places and need fed and laundry, and sitting still isn't an option in my house
Yeah.
usually.
Bree, I had a tumor in my leg. I had a nerve tumor called a schwannoma, and I had it taken out at Hopkins, which is in Baltimore, so it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I came home. I lived by myself at the time, and I would like stand on one leg and do the dishes and all this. So, but I had to go for a checkup in 2 weeks. So I drove myself, and I was on a cane.
Yeah.
And the surgeon comes into the exam room, and he looks at his nurse and he goes, "You owe me $20." And I went, what is that about? And he goes, I bet her $20 you would not be on your crutches, that you would just be a stubborn. And I said, I'm on a cane.
Right. I will say my mom has been amazing. So my surgeon, like my team was 2 hours away in Johnstown. So I had a pretty good hike, like to all my appointments and, tests and stuff. So my mom drove me and went with me to a lot of those appointments. And I tell her now we don't need to talk to each other for like a good month. Like there's nothing in this world that we need to talk about. Because she's a yapper. So I'd be like, can we just like, can I scroll on my phone and like listen to the radio? And she'd be like, did you hear about Betty down the street and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, Mom. Yeah. I sent the wrong check to like the utility company. So I sent the electric bill to one and I, I sent the insurance check to the other just to like buy me like, like that 2-week time because they could charge me a late fee,
You're punk rock Roseanne.
Yeah. Gotta do what you gotta do sometimes.
If people don't get that joke, they're not old enough.
You're right.
You'll be able to go back to work, Bree.
I'm gonna attempt tomorrow. I'm gonna go just for a couple hours and see how it goes. I do a lot of shipping at my job. So it's like making like these big, like thick, heavy boxes. And you don't realize how much you need your chest muscles to use to do things until you are told not to use them. And then you're like, oh my God, I need them for everything to live. Like in the beginning, like the first 2 weeks, like even brushing my teeth was hard. I would like hold my toothbrush and just like move my head because like, like that whole motion of like moving my hand, like just killed my chest muscles.
Oh gosh. Should have got an electric toothbrush.
Right. Well, I fucked up because I did all like the physical stuff, like got my house cleaned and went grocery shopping and all that stuff before surgery. And I saved all my computer work for when I was going to be stuck in bed, only to realize that holding my hands up and typing was like the worst thing to do for my chest. So
yeah,
I didn't get any of that done either.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would be very easy.
I had to write 4 notes for my kids for school the other day, and oh my God, that killed me. Like by the end, I was like, my arm was stretched out and I was like barely writing my name. But it was just like things like that you don't think about,
Let's talk about what brought us here. The new Downstrokes record that is going to be a co-release on Allegedly Records and Coffin Curse Records. Tell us about the process of putting this record together. I know, you and I have been in contact this whole process, and it's been a while. So I know you have plenty to tell.
Fucking process in the world.
It seems like you've been working on it since the last one came out.
Yeah, we have. And I'll say this: we also recorded a 6 extra songs that are going to be a split with the Prozacs.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, last May, so this is May of 2022. We went and recorded a bunch of multi-track demos. And we were hoping the experience was like, we didn't go in there thinking they'd be demos, but we were sort of working with a guy who had a new studio. He'd done live sound for us a bunch of times. And our attitude was like, well, if they're terrible, they'll be multi-track demos. They were terrible. God, I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast. I actually had to remix everything. And I got something that was sort of usable as demos. And then we went into the studio and we recorded 10 songs. 8 of which of those 10 are on this album. 2 are going to be on the split. And the experience was good. The first mix he gave us, he mixed us like we were the Offspring from 1994. It was like all bass. There was no mid, and and Robin and I were like, it took a long time. We wanted to stick with some local producers, at local studios. We were going to go to one place and somebody broke into his studio and destroyed everything, including $20,000 worth of guitars.
Good.
Then we moved to this other studio, and the guy was very nice, and we all know him, and he has a really good sensibility, but he just didn't know what to do with us. I mean, I think if you go in there and you say, hey, we're looking for a sound that is California 1998, you can do that. But I mean, like I was saying things like this. Give them enough rope and stiff little fingers, go for it. And Endangered Species by the UK subs, these British late 70s, early 80s British UK albums that were produced by American producers. I was like, and the Downstrokes, I mean, let's face it, we're a little weird. And I mean, like we want to be the Replacements, basically, without like falling over drunk.
It's a good goal.
And so, Dan did a great job, but it took him a long time. And it took Robin and I going in and doing a lot of extra guitar tracks. I mean, we recorded a lot of extra guitar tracks, a lot of extra vocal tracks. But we got through it, and then Kyle, the drummer, our drummer, suggested we go back to the Warren where we recorded Fall in Love with Punk Rock Again. And we did 6 more songs there, 2 of which, including the title track, This Close to Vertigo, came from. And, Matt had the sort of the bonus of having worked with us before.
Yeah.
And has recorded a lot of other of Kyle's projects. So it went more easy. I guess that would be easier, more easily as I'm an English professor.
Yeah.
It went more easily. And then when we finally we settled on the album, we felt really good about it. We sent it to Mas Giorgini to master, and we were very excited about it. And Mas is in Italy, and he's got a full-time job. And of course, and then in the middle of his mastering, the shit hit the fan with Anti-Flag, which of course he's produced 6 Anti-Flag records. He's very close to those guys. So he was devastated by that. But the really cool thing about this record, and I'm gonna urge all you punk musicians out there to think about this, is that I actually wrote an individual artist grant from the state. And I said, look, we're going to use all Western Maryland, studios and production. We're going to get a Western Maryland artist to do the cover art and the insert. And we actually got a state arts grant to help fund this record.
That's incredible, dude.
Yeah. It was great. I mean, one day I got a check for, several $1,000s, and it was like, oh, well, that's neat.
Yeah, that's definitely neat.
Got rejected and reapplied, and got rejected and reapplied. And finally, I made it a multidiscipline grant. So I said, look, we're going to have an art show, and we're going to have, we're going to have the lyrics all printed out, hand drawn by the artist on an insert, but we're actually going to have copies of the insert free at the record release as a sort of giveaway. So we sort of made it this thing that sold it as like written word, music, and visual art.
So the grant process from start to finish, how many months did that take?
4.
That's not bad.
No, it was 4. It was like writing the grant, getting rejected, reading the notes, rewriting the grant, getting rejected, reading the notes, tweaking the budget. I mean, we all know that it costs a lot of money to put out a record. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, some people can record it at home, but if you're going into the studio, just the studio time alone could be $4,000.
Yeah, several thousand, I was gonna say.
Producing, getting the actual physical copies of records and CDs is $3,000. Getting it mastered by Mas Giorgini was, X amount of dollars. But we wanted, our take was this: we wanted it to be a step forward. We didn't want to just do, another record that sounded like Unsafe at Any Speed. We wanted a record that was bigger sounding, more ambitious, and continued to do what I think is, always been my mission with this band, to sort of explore what it means to be a punk musician. So this record, it starts with Kaput, which sounds kind of Green Day-ish, I think, in its own way. But you get to a song like Flying Metal Death Trap, and I think you're hearing Thin Lizzy. I think it's all over the place. She is very much a replacement style song. I think a song like Go Nowhere Kids, there's some degeneration and some of the sort of glam punk of the
That's
90s.
my favorite off the
album. We've got This Close to Vertigo coming out on, that's Friday, September 29th.
Yep.
And you guys have your album release party. Is that also on Friday, September 29th?
That is Friday, September 29th, at Dig Deep in Frostburg, Maryland, where it's a hometown show. We don't do a lot of hometown shows. We are keenly aware that this is one. I'm a firm believer that you don't want to burn out your audience. I never want to be that band that somebody goes, I'll see in 3 weeks when they play someplace else. And we're playing with Paperback Tragedy, our good friends from Baltimore, and Allegedly.
Yep, I'll be making the trip down, so I will see you there. And
it's a free show. We're gonna do a donation jar. That money's gonna go to Paperback Tragedy, but we're doing a free show.
I see you.
And we'll have CDs, and we'll have the digital release, and we'll have pre-sales for the record. And we'll also be offering like a deal for a while. Buy the new record, get either of the other 2 albums for half price. And then we take off immediately on Thursday, Friday, the following Thursday, Friday, and Saturday Thursday will be in Richmond. Friday will be in Charleston, South Carolina, and then Saturday we'll do an in-store at Repo Records in Charlotte.
Nice.
I just want to say, we're really proud of this record. We hope everybody likes it, and really grateful to you and Bree for the support and the belief in it. It is not a small thing to have somebody say, I want my name attached to this record, right? So that's the first thing I want to say. Because this is, one of the things we started talking about, all this medical stuff early on. We're a community. We're a family.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad to be a part of it. And I feel like I feel like this relationship between Allegedly and Coffin Curse can grow. And I'm so happy to have somehow managed to sort of make this a firmer connection. The other thing is this: look, Jack Rabbit already played Moral Dilemma, the last single that we released from it, on Friday on the Big Takeover radio show. We're super excited. Other people seem to be excited about the record. We will play your town. Invite us out. We'll drive. We drive as Jason Overmiller at the West Yorkins says, one of the first conversations we ever had, he said, well, York is kind of far from Frostburg. And I said to him, we will drive to play rock and roll. And he was like, you had me at that sentence.
I love Jason too. He's such a great dude.
Yeah. So, we'll be touring. We'll be traveling around. We'll be back up in New York. We'll be back in Pittsburgh and Cleveland. We're sort of booking some stuff right now. but if you want us, if you like what you hear, go to um, the downstrokes1.bandcamp.com. You can get several free singles from the album there. If you like what you see, reach out to us. And remember this, all bands, we're not making any money from Spotify. We just re-upped our Pandora page. And it's like, yeah, Pandora pays better than Spotify, but that's kind of like saying, poison is a better way to die than getting shot in the head.
I thought you were going to say Poison is a better band than Warrant, which is not true.
Are they really?
It's not true. Warrant wrote Cherry Pie.
Yes.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Warrant wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Facts. So, Bree, this is your first time on the Oh Hell Yeah podcast. So I'm going to ask you the two questions I want to ask everybody. So first question is, can you pinpoint a moment that is your aha moment of that's what got you into punk rock?
Yes, actually. So I was an exchange student in the Dominican Republic my junior year of high school.
Your junior or senior?
My junior year.
Junior, okay.
So I came back and I had my senior year to go through.
Yeah.
And I kind of lost touch with my friends during that year. And it was just kind of, and I had some previous punk, listening history before I left. But when I got back, I was at this record store and they had this beat up box of discount CDs. And it was Bad Religion's Recipe for Hate. Physical Fatness was in there. So one. I just bought a whole bunch of just random, there was a Face to Face in there, just a bunch of random. And I brought it home and I listened to it and I was just like, holy fuck, this is my music, And then I kind of branched off and went more into the MC5, New York Dolls kind of era. I think it's called proto punk now. It's glam rock to me,
Yeah.
But
that's my bread and butter right there.
Well, dude, when I heard that album, I was just like, this is everything I love about punk rock. So that was my moment. Just I found some beat up CDs and I brought them home like the little ADH squirrel that I am. And
do you have
here we are.
Any memories of the first time you experienced pro wrestling? And if so, do you know the wrestler that was your first memory of, oh, so this is something?
Yep, once again. So my mom was 15 when I was born. So I lived with my grandparents and I shared a room with my 10-year-old uncle. And he was a huge pro wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. So one of my earliest memories is being suplexed onto beds and Hacksaw Jim Duggan was my wrestler.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I know way more about 80s and 90s pro wrestling than a 40-year-old woman should, for sure.
That's my bread and butter, like Jerry said. It's my bread and butter.
I have a question for you, Mike.
Sure.
Is that you have approached the Downstrokes twice about doing, participating in cover albums, and
yeah,
one was the Metallica one. Now there's the NoFX one, and I always think to myself, I'm too old for these bands. When are you gonna give me a juicy hey, let's do a Clash or Stiff Little Fingers, or
Velvet Underground,
an X album? I will be there. We will be there. A Replacements record. The Downstrokes will be in the studio yesterday if you hit us with that.
Yeah. Well, like Bree said earlier, there's always time.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me,
I always feel bad because I'm like, wow, I listen to NoFX, but they're not.
Dude, if we do a glam punk, I will barf in my pants from happiness.
How does one barf in their pants?
I don't know.
It's
something the Idle Minds boys say it all the time, and it's just something I've adapted as my own.
Teach me more, Sensei.
Boys, they will get you in trouble.
Oh, 100%.
You had a dream concert that the Downstrokes could open for. 3 bands, have to be living. should be, the criteria would be they should be still active, but if not active, it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility that they could reunite. Can you think of a dream concert, Gerry, that would be the Downstrokes first and then band?
How about this? The Downstrokes, Electric Frankenstein, whom we got to play with and were phenomenal. It was such a fun day. Stiff Little Fingers and X.
So Stiff Little Fingers still touring right now?
They're still touring.
Yeah,
they're still touring. You know, and I've seen them. I've seen them probably 25 times. Jake Burns. I have a kind of passing, but somewhat regular correspondence with. We've talked about what it would take to get them at Savage Mountain.
Yeah.
Which would be huge. X is still touring. I would love to play with X.
A friend's band. I just saw yesterday that a friend's band is opening for X, but you said X 30 seconds ago, and it just dawned on me. Yesterday I saw on Facebook that a friend of mine, his band's opening for X. I completely lost who the friend is and who the band is. But
that always happens when I do interviews.
Of course.
Mike, thank you so much.
This is a pleasure, guys. I appreciate you both.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. And just a reminder, Allegedly Records and Coffin Curse Records are getting together to drop the new Downstrokes records coming out on Friday, September 29th. It's called This Close to Vertigo. How many songs are on the album, Gerry?
10.
10 songs. 10, that's a good number. I like solid numbers. Our new album's got to have 11 songs on. It's going to make me not be able to sleep at night. Odd numbers make me uncomfortable. Odd numbers make me very uncomfortable. I'm the guy in the car. If somebody turns the radio to 11, I'm like 12.